help women save lives and peacefully end abortion where you live.
I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
You were serious about that?
Be inspired to change hearts and minds by joining over 1 million volunteers taking part in the global movement happening in your neighborhood.
She says, pray that I can get through this abortion. And I said, oh, no. So she went ahead and went into the abortion clinic. When she just came out, she told us, I'm not going to get the abortion. We just had a baby saved. We had a baby saved in Memphis today. Praise the Lord.
This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I'm Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. Happy Lent. We are in the middle of it, and that means we're in the middle of the largest Lent 40 Days for Life campaign we've ever had after kicking off on Ash Wednesday. If you are weary this Lent already, we encourage you to go back and listen to our Lenten podcast on prayer, which came out Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday on March the 4th. So run back and check that out to sort of refresh yourself and finish strong as we prepare our hearts for what Fulton Sheen called the most important week of the world. And so you've got to get ready for Holy Week, and that Lenten podcast the week that changed the world. I knew that I was messing up Fulton Sheen's quote, the week that changed the world. So be sure to go check out our Lenten podcast to sort of refresh yourself. And obviously, if you haven't done so already, go to 40daysforlife.com and sign up to pray out at your local vigil. It is not too late. We also have a lot of 40 Days for Life 365 locations where you can go out and instantly help save a life, instantly defund Planned Parenthood if you have a Planned Parenthood, and instantly certainly make impact on women who have had an abortion and are leaving that facility. You can be the first person they encounter, or you can certainly impact the workers who feel they have no other option other than to work in the abortion industry. So lots of good that God can use you for as we close out Lent over the next couple of weeks. And today we're going to talk about what to make of when you participate in 40 Days for Life and you don't save babies. And we will discuss that because it's a very popular topic and more common that you actually don't see the fruit of your prayers, the fruit of your labor. And so we will discuss that. Someone who has his entire life seen the fruit of his own labor is Mr. Steve Carlin, who joins us from Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, the fruit of my own labor. I've seen much of it in my day.
For instance, your patience at getting Packer tickets. That's fruit.
That's true. I like talking about that, especially in Lent.
Yes.
Because I have not at all developed the interior or aesthetic life at all. So I'm just waiting to get through Lent so I can go to Packer games again.
You are Captain Interior Life. I look at you and I think of The Imitation of Christ by Thomas Kempis.
Blowing all your introductions of me in one podcast. You can save that for the next
we also, as we had many female viewers and listeners point out, we have that woman on the panelist.
Mm-hmm. On the panel.
What is it? The woman on the panel? The panelist.
We had both.
Woman?
You're mixing them together.
What did she say?
It was the lady panelist.
Lady
and
panelist.
someone else said, what is that woman doing there?
That was much more harsh, actually. You better take lady panelist.
Both from women. So
both from women.
misogyny.
It's not sexist because they were women.
Yeah.
We have feedback from the podcast.
We do. Flashback, you might remember, I can't remember even how it came up, but you said you do not need gutters on your house, and you never have.
Heather asked.
No, it was a Christmas vacation reference. Where it was up
of gutters, and I said, of course you don't need gutters. I said it casually, and Heather's like, I just bought a house. I'm getting quotes on gutters, and I was like, don't do it. It's because I heard a good old boy on the Saturday morning Houston radio station say, you don't need gutters. They're overrated. I Googled it, and you really don't need gutters. The gutter industry has told you that you do, like Big Pharma, like COVID, the like.
You get your gutters done by RFK.
You get your gutters done by RFK, which means no gutters whatsoever. You get the gutters. You don't need them. They're totally overrated. So, and they don't look good either.
They don't, which is why I was hopeful. And I said on that podcast, I want to believe. But I doubted, like Thomas. I doubted.
You wanted to
had
believe
faith.
me.
Yes, I wanted to believe you. I had faith, but I doubted. And so we asked the listeners, what do they know about gutters? And I was worried. I have a basement. I don't want water getting in my basement. So Joe in Kalamazoo said, Steve is spot on regarding the gutters.
Wow.
If you have a basement, you must have gutters. If you don't have them, you risk getting water in your basement. If you don't have a basement, I agree that you don't need them. So this is, we're both right.
Yeah, we're both right. Because you
like-
asked me, you said, do you have a basement? I said, no.
Yeah.
And then I said, I don't know if that changes anything. So Joe in Kalamazoo is bringing people together.
Yeah, we were looking to fight here. We're going to butt heads.
Yeah, but it's like everybody, he respects all beliefs. Everybody's right.
Yeah, Joe is a moral relativist, I think, when it comes to gutters.
I don't think that if he listens to this podcast with any kind of seriousness.
That's a domino effect. No water in your basement, you avoid mold and all the other issues that come with that.
But you don't have a basement, right?
No,
No, you're in Austin.
Yeah.
So
Does anybody have a basement in Texas? Is that a northern thing to have a
No.
basement?
It is a northern thing,
tornadoes.
but there are some places in
Mary
Texas
Lisa
that
grew up
have
in a
them.
country house that had a huge basement. It's
Yeah.
great for tornadoes.
There's a house with a basement in College Station that I know of.
Really?
Yeah, it's really random, but yeah, I don't know if there's more than that one, but
We had one when we lived in Virginia for a couple of years. And we moved up there. They're like, wow, this is cool because we don't have basements in Texas. That thing was more of a pain in the rear than any part of our house, whether it was water getting in, bugs getting in. It is a constant, you have to put the dehumidifier down there.
Yeah.
It is kind of a pain. It's cool for the extra space, but I don't know. I was like, I could do without it. And that's what we do now.
Okay.
who else we got?
Rich and Linda, you can only have no gutters if your house sits on a slab, no basement. I dare anyone who has a basement to go gutterless. Good luck with that. Also, does Sean live in a development or rurally? And yes, it has a lot to do with the elevation of your home and which way the water runs from your house.
It's rural.
So he's agreeing with you.
Yeah, he's agreeing with me.
But with a dare.
With the dare.
I defy you.
Well, he said, I dare you if you have a basement to not have gutters. So this sounds like a basement thing, which means this brings us back to COVID. Okay, because...
A topic I am always down for.
Yeah, because what happened is it's like, everybody's dying. Everybody must get the vaccine. And then what happened was, super overweight, diabetic 79-year-olds are dying or whatever it was. It was like very low death rate. But everybody has to get the vaccine, not just those people. And they force it on everybody. And the northern basement gutter corporations went down south and were like, you have to get a gutter. Everybody up north has them.
So as a northerner with a basement, you're accusing me of being the overweight diabetic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you forced the vaccine on people
All right.
because you have a basement, and now gutters are promoted in the south.
Putting a mask on my garage as well.
That's you don't want your garage door to actually get sneezed on.
We got one more here from Joy, and I'm skeptical about this one.
You're skeptical, or
I'm
that's
curious
part of
if I'm curious if Joy is pulling my leg or not.
Okay.
And either you guys can answer or the listeners can answer. I'm going to preface this. I'm from the north. It gets cold. We put salt on the roads to melt the ice and prevent it. We one time met someone who had moved up to Wisconsin from the south and did not believe us. Thought that this was a joke. These guys are going to get me to put salt on my driveway, and then they will laugh at me. And we explained it, explained
really
the
bad.
science. She believed it. So then we added, and when it gets really cold, you put pepper on your driveway.
Now that's funny.
That's good.
And at that point, then she didn't even believe the salt thing. So I hope that she didn't fall and slip and break her leg because she had no salt on it. But I'm curious about this. When we moved to Dallas from New Jersey, we were surprised to learn that we should water our house. The foundation needed to be kept evenly moist around it or the clay would shrink and break the slab. When we moved back to New Jersey, we improved our gutters on our house to make the basement less flooded. It is not totally dry. I'm curious, is this watering your house thing? Is that real? That sounds like pepper on the driveway.
That's what some people have told me in
Really?
Austin.
Okay.
But I've also heard some people say, no, you want water away from your foundation. And then a friend of mine who claims to know more than those people about this, said no, because the type of clay we have in our area is pretty dense. So you don't need to water it because it doesn't. Or was that backwards? Now I'm confusing it. I've gotten so much opinion.
I think I can solve your problem. It's that the rule that I heard. I think it's BS. The rule is that if you have to water your foundation or your house, you don't need to be living in that house or have that foundation. The way the foundations are made now in different parts of Texas, because it's so diverse, it could be super dry, it could be the clay, it could be moist soil, like where I live in Houston, we get so much rain. But if the builder doesn't know what he's doing. If he's building in Austin or Dallas and he has to tell you every 6 weeks, go out and water your house like a psychopath. So the thing is, I'll give you a car analogy. I had in high school, I had a really cool truck and then I wrecked it on my 17th birthday. It was tragic. So then I got my grandpa's old car, which was like an 87 a blue Honda Accord. Her name was Old Blue. God rest her soul. And she leaked a solid 3 quarts of oil a day.
Oy.
So I had a system that I thought was very sophisticated, which was I had a case of oil in my trunk, and when it would get really low, it would kind of start smoking. I'd pull over on the side of the highway, I pop the hood, I put more oil in, and I just never fixed it.
Good as new.
Good as new. And it's kind of like, if you go through a couple of quarts of oil a day in your car, it's probably you don't need to be driving that car.
Very much a hazard.
Yes. Don't even get me started on the environment. But yeah, that was before the environment was a thing for the listeners.
So it sounds like it's complicated, but Joy is at least sincere in her advice here. She's not just joking.
Yeah, that's not made up.
All right.
That's not made up. But we have friends that go to our parish who are from New Jersey. And it's really funny. They have an opposite story. So they move to Houston from New Jersey, and the fall comes. And of course, they're kind of homesick because we don't really get fall. And they're like, oh, we just love making different kind of soups. And they're talking to their neighbor. And they say to their neighbor, so in Texas, what kind of soups do people make in the fall? Which is a totally authentic question from somebody up north of the East Coast. They're like, what do you mean? Well, what kind of soups do y'all make? When it starts to get chilly, And their neighbor goes, you mean queso?
You mean queso?
Queso.
Oh no, that's not soup.
We don't eat soup. We eat chili, which is year round. Transcends time and
we eat
culture.
taco soup and vegetable soup, or at least I do.
I eat vegetable soup.
Sometimes.
When's the last time you were
Lent?
I am making.
Or every Friday, if you observe every Friday.
That's
oh,
not
she's trying to guilt you on that.
No,
Catholic guilt you into
no,
eating
it's
soup.
not Catholic guilt. It's that's nobody builds up to that. These people are holding soup in a high thing. You're referencing as penance during Lent, on Fridays. So vegetable soup, that's not a thing in Texas.
So says you.
No, that's universal truth. Vegetable soup is not gosh, I could just crush some vegetable soup this afternoon. Well, let's save it, honey. Let's make it for the Super Bowl. We don't do that. We do that about chili.
Yes.
Some people get very serious about chili.
Oh, yes.
I'm very serious about chili.
That's an interesting thing because it's always hot here. You'll find good chili in Wisconsin, but you eat it in January and February. That's the time of year, and it's always hot here.
I don't understand the chili liturgical calendar, but it's there's Chili Fest, which we saw the billboards for.
Yeah, it sounds like a...
I haven't been, but I know what it is.
On Happy Gilmore, when a large and economically diverse crowd on hand today.
I know my college buddies who went, and I know my college buddies who didn't go. And I was part of the crowd that didn't go, but it was pretty much, yeah.
That's why you didn't need the hepatitis vaccine.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't need the hepatitis vaccine because I didn't go to Chili Fest. So,
But Steve's definition of hot is 40 degrees.
No, it's not. In all fairness,
he has totally said that before.
Well, in the winter time, it's oh my gosh, it's up to 37, and we would freak out if the high was 37. But chili's good in the summer. Chili's good, obviously, on a cold night.
Yes.
But it goes all year. Nobody looks forward to vegetable soup. You're just trying to be that person. I have a different opinion.
That's what
We do eat soup. No, we don't.
Listen to the lady panelist.
The lady
Sean.
panelist.
Gosh.
The lady panelist doesn't know what she's talking about.
Vegetable soup is what people who are being punished eat. Like in the gulags, like
Yeah.
you're like mining the ore out of the mines all day for 12 hours.
I
and then
think
you get your
I think the easy way to rate a food is to wonder or get factual evidence of how many people on death row request it as their last meal. And I promise you, queso is somewhere on the list. Texas has executed a lot of criminals. You're telling me they didn't want some queso?
Make a great family food episode.
That's right. Yeah.
Survey says we interviewed 100 criminals on death row.
You're going to be executed tomorrow. Is there a Torchy's nearby? I could crush some tacos and some of their queso. Actually, scratch that. I'll take vegetable soup. Oh, gosh. We're going to get emails about that. You're not nice to the lady. Okay. Anything else on this? Any other feedback?
There were a couple others that basically said the same thing. Yes, if you have a basement. So I want to get rid of my gutters.
Hey, but that's actually, we were helpful, I think, on that, because it could have easily been like, Sean's an idiot, you have to have gutters universal. Or it could have been no gutters, no problem. But that was basically like, if you have a basement, you need a gutter. If you don't have a basement, you do not need a gutter.
So if you've got a key question about maintaining your home and keeping it in good operational order, just listen to what we have to say, and then 2 months later, we'll come back and let you know if it was right or not after we hear from the listeners.
So that podcast aired, and then we got some serious, as we always do, storms in Houston. And it's just like a flood. And like I look down, and our garden, it's all dead, right? Because it's winter, but our garden is just like a lake, and it's draining off, right? It's doing what it's supposed to do. But I had like second thought of like, it'd be nice to have a gutter right about now. Is there a realm of possibilities that I could be wrong on this one point? Okay, so this is a beautiful topic because it's so, especially during Lent, when people get discouraged about a lot of things, and
Easy to do.
Easy to do. And I think one of the things, look, there's like this wave of enthusiasm in America. And we see it actually from liberals. Like, 80% of them approve of how fast Trump is moving. They may not agree with everything he does, but they agree with the speed of it, because I guess Biden just didn't do anything. And just all the gutting government and maybe getting out of all the wars and all that stuff. So there's this kind of like positive feeling in the United States. Whether you hate Trump or love him, it's just kind of like, at least we have a president, And I think that can blind us to the reality of the culture. Like, things actually aren't good.
Mm-hmm.
Politically, they're getting better and they're good. I would say they're good, but some would say they're not. But that can blind us to the fact that, we're just in great shape, and we're not. And, one of the great things about Lynn is revealing that, about ourselves, how we're not great as we ought to be, and how our culture is not great. And I think one of the things to look at is what to do when things don't go as they should go. And we save a lot of babies, but we don't save more. And people are surprised to hear us say that sometimes.
Yeah, we've got to be honest. You're not going to go out there and see the majority or all of the babies saved. It is the fact of the matter is we're leaving the 99 behind and seeking out the one. And we know of more than 25,000 babies that have been saved at a 40 Days for Life campaign. We don't know how many have gotten through. And I think it's great because every time you see a life saved from abortion, it's just the dignity of that life, the limitless potential that is unleashed. But what happens when we go out there and we don't save any babies? There are people listening to this podcast who have never been present when they know a baby has been saved. So the question is, and I think people are tempted to ask this from time to time, is it still worth it? What are we doing? If we go to the homeless shelter or the soup kitchen, which are good things to do, I don't want to discourage anyone or be like, hey, serve in this thing and quit serving in that thing so you have more time for what I think is important. But when you don't see the fruits as you would serving in some other capacity, well, gosh, is this the best use of my time? Am I being the best steward of the time that I've been given by God? I think we've all perhaps asked ourselves that from time to time, and we should answer it.
Yeah, and we can just go through, most 40 Days for Life campaigns don't save large numbers of babies. So here's just a couple of little facts, which is we save one or two. Is it worth it? Is it a waste of time? Does it really matter if we're there personally? But when it happens, there's nothing like saving a baby. This goes back to the point where I brought an executive one time who wanted to see a 40 Days for Life vigil, and he's like, you know, it's interesting because of what y'all do. Like, y'all, I was trying to get him to join. Besides being a doctor, and not even every doctor, you really can't save a life. Most people won't save a life. I mean, that's why Sully was such a big deal, because he crashed into the river or landed in the river. And a lot of pilots said that never should have happened. That never should have happened. But, you know, he landed, he saved all those people. He's a hero. Tom Hanks plays him in the movie. That's just so rare, you know, and he's an airline pilot. They can prevent death by just doing their job. But most people can't really save the life of someone who will die without you.
Paramedics, I would say, would be an
daily.
alternate example, but
Well, doctors and you know, nurses and you know, certainly paramedics. But other than that, 40 Days for Life gives a great opportunity to save a life.
yes, and we often talk about that 75% statistic from the abortion industry, where they admitted in a convention before Abby quit that the no-show rate rises as high as 75%. Well, that's not something we see. And in fact, I don't know that we've had any locations that have actually seen 75%. Like, if they were able to witness how many women went in for an abortion that day, they witnessed 75% of them turning away. But that just proves all the more that just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And for me, I've said this before, but anytime I am feeling discouraged or I get to a point where I'm saying those things to myself, am I really making the most of my time out here? Am I wasting my time? Should I be doing something else? What could I be doing better while I'm here? What am I doing wrong? Because it's been months since I've seen a save. Maybe it's even been days, weeks, or months since you were able to get anybody to talk to you if you're a sidewalk advocate or a sidewalk counselor. And those are very, you know, legitimate feelings and concerns that we have. But then I hear from these former abortion workers that have left our facilities, some of which I've prayed outside of, and every single one of them is tell everybody that their presence matters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what more you need to convince you when it's coming from inside the facility. Like, you can't see it, but they can, and they have a front row seat to it more so than we do.
There's a legitimate argument, and I speak from this personally, and Abby put it in her book, that most pro-lifers would have given up without former workers. I'm not saying I would have. I would have been prone to. Like, is this doing any good? I mean, when you're in a place like Bryan College Station, there's, for market size, you know, 40 abortions every other week is not a lot. Whereas opposed if you go up to Houston or Dallas or New York, you just have a bigger chance because it's a numbers game of saving a baby. So we didn't see a lot of saves. So it's like, is this really doing any good? And, you know, when Abby left, I was like, this is like detrimental. It's huge. What are you, crazy? You know? And I think that for most of our volunteers, hearing that stat, that the no-show rate goes as high as 75%, it just means that this is proven to work. It's kind of a guarantee, and it wasn't always proven.
We got a kind of a nasty email recently because we sent out, one of your emails mentioned the 75% turnaway statistic, and somebody wrote back and said, that's not true. We've never seen anything like that. You need to repent. And so I said, okay, well,
wow.
I kind of explained, like, that's exactly the point. Nobody has ever seen that. We only know it because of the abortion workers who share it with us, and that's why this is such an encouraging thing.
They thought it was like 75% turnaround.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, they're going to witness that.
They're going to witness that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so we're saying, like, it goes up to that high. He's like, nobody's ever seen that. I'm like, yeah, I know. Nobody has ever seen that. We're getting our evidence from inside. This is to encourage all of the many people who don't see that on the sidewalk. And he did not accept that. I think he was looking to be negative, but this is important. You know, we got 5 things here to remember when you don't save any babies. And the first one is you actually probably are saving babies.
Yeah, that's the first thing to remember. And obviously prayer matters. Prayer works. We do have that stat from inside the abortion industry, the 75% no-show rate.
Which is like triple the normal rate, right? Like
Triple,
it's already a high.
It's typically, so let's dive into that. So you show up for surgeries, right? I mean, it's very rare that you would miss a surgery.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what the stat is. I dug it up forever ago, but it's like 3% because you get the flu, you're in a car accident. Like, it's a freak thing. If you're having heart surgery, when I had my foot surgery, like the whole 8 weeks leading into it, actually the whole 6 months leading into it was planned on that day. Like, you're not missing that. I actually did, I had to reschedule one, and it's like, I have to push it back a year, so it's a big deal to get a surgery. An abortion no-show rate is extremely high. I think it's literally the highest. It's about 22% no-show rate.
Out of all the surgeries, yeah.
All the surgeries. Can you imagine? 22% of people miss heart surgery or getting their tonsils out.
Such a supposedly necessary procedure.
Lives are at stake, Heather.
Yeah.
You must go and get the tumor removed tomorrow. I'll come back later. 22% no-show rate. So when we're out there, it shoots up to 75%. That's detrimental. They're already in a battle because abortion's controversial. So it's like, you think she'll show up? You think she'll show up? So, a fifth of their customers are not showing up on any given abortion day, as is, which is a terrible business model and should tell you something about your business. But it goes up to 75%, and that's detrimental, which is why these abortion facilities in pro-abortion areas close because of the no-show rate. Okay, number 2, no prayer goes unanswered.
Thank you, Garth Brooks.
Thank you, Garth Brooks.
Just thinking.
Now, I think it's important to realize that sometimes
God's greatest gift are unanswered prayers. Is that what
Yes.
it is? Sometimes God's greatest gift are unanswered prayers.
Yep,
Okay.
because he didn't get to marry his high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
Oh, but he ended up marrying the other lady, got divorced, and then was with Trish?
And then this is real life versus the song, Sean.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah. I know that it's a song. It's okay. Because he didn't marry his high school girlfriend.
Yeah, he was back at the old hometown high school football game and runs into the girl. He's like, man, I really wanted to marry her. And now he's married to his wife with his kids. And thank God that those prayers were not answered.
Okay.
It's a sweet message.
It is
You don't think about Trisha Yearwood.
Yeah. It is a sweet. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, the podcast that is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live and understanding the lyrics of Garth Brooks from 1991.
Exactly.
No, this is important because the TV version of this, right, is like you show up, and the baby's saved, and then the half-hour television program is done, and everybody lives happily ever after. And God just doesn't work that way, right? I think a great example of the importance of being steadfast in our prayers is look to Scripture. Look to Moses. He leads the Israelites out on this 40-year journey. They don't know how it's going to end. He doesn't know how it's going to end. He doesn't live to make it to the promised land, and yet the promise is still fulfilled. The promise is still answered. So I think that that's an important thing for us to recognize, that sometimes he provides us with a quick answer, a quick consolation to our prayers. Other times he's content to let us wait it out and just trust him a little bit. Blessed are those who have, you've seen Thomas, you have believed Thomas because you have seen. Blessed are those who have not seen but have believed.
Yes. We have, I think, a lot of times people will say, well, I know for a fact, maybe they're citing a cultural reference like the unanswered prayers by Garth Brooks. I know for a fact that prayers aren't always answered. So how do we dare to say, no, that's not true, God answers our prayers? And I'm sure there's a lot of great writings out there that I have yet to read all of them about, God answering prayers. But I think the best way to put it is each prayer that we have has some sort of root in that desire. So I want to marry this person. I'm in love with them. They're going to make me happy. I want to make them happy. And the root of that is I want to love and be loved. And I think, I don't know, how would y'all say another way would be? Because that's what I always think of. And that's kind of what I've read some theologians and those who are much better equipped to talk about that than I am. But that's what I think of, is he may be answering our prayers, just not in the way that we expect him to or want him to.
Yeah, and the problem with us is we refuse to live our life with a disposition of eternity, and God is eternal, and so He always has the best interests, and that's why we are forced to have things like mysteries.
Yes,
It's okay for us to not know something. And we do know a lot more than I think the world claims. Like, I do think you can prove that God exists. You can't prove it scientifically. You can darn near prove it scientifically. But it makes sense. It makes more sense that God exists than it does that he doesn't exist. You have to have way more faith to be an atheist just because of the natural order and the cosmos and the way everything works.
I've prayed countless times that these abortion facilities will close tomorrow, or that every single woman that goes into this facility changes her mind and leaves, and every single abortion worker quits, and that hasn't happened yet.
Well, and also a mature person will not run from the problem of evil. Right. Why doesn't God close every abortion clinic and save every baby tomorrow? Right. He's a cruel God who wants babies to die and women to be hurt. Answer me that. And it's like, no, because he loves us so much, he gave us free will, and therefore we have evil in the world. Evil's real.
Why do miscarriages happen to a couple who wants a baby? Yeah, why is there suffering? That's the ultimate question.
Exactly, which is very scary because now we're going to build heaven on earth, and which is completely atheistic. And that has led to the destruction of more human beings than any other philosophy, which is that we will make heaven on earth. We reject all suffering. We reject all evil. We will have paradise, and I'll be the leader, Wahaha. And that is very dangerous. It makes more sense that evil exists, that man is fallen. In his nature, he's not as he ought to be via original sin, which I think everybody believes in, no matter what, that man is not as he ought to be. And man encompasses, of course, men and women.
Lady panelists included. And that is okay. There's hope within that, which is, of course, the story of the gospel. So that was like your little theology thing. It's like a history of the covenant. Mm-hmm. But so many people just otherwise Moses, he would have never made it anywhere. And the Jews wouldn't have made it 10 years. There's a long view, right?
True.
How long?
That's a generation. Goodness.
And this is what Judaism has done far better job at than overall, I would say, Christianity. I think Catholicism did it for a while, but we haven't done it in 100 years, which is this perspective of eternity and the communion of the saints, and that in 5,000 years, and the Jews were always good at the long game, and Catholics were for the most part. But this whole notion that life will come after you, and not just like, I'm not going to be around here forever, brother. Not that, but that the Psalms say, we'll live for 70 years or 80 for those that are strong, and most of those are spent in emptiness and pain. As an Irish priest once told me, more inspiring words from the scriptures. I think it's Psalm 90. Yeah. And so, it's a very, that's a very real perspective. It's like a glimpse. We've talked about St. Alphonsus Liguori in preparation for death, which is just like, most people are going to forget about you after a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, not your mom and, your kids and stuff like that, but it's like the world moves on. If we know anything, is that the world moves on. And the world moves on more now than ever before because of mass media.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, the whole we will never forget you and all that. Yeah, we will. It's just human nature, The church won't. It'll pray for you or your relatives or whatever. But most likely, you're going to be forgotten. And we don't like to hear that.
But what I love is going back to one of the points, examples of this point, you probably are saving babies and you don't know it. We've had so many instances in multiple cities over the years of moms or dads coming to the sidewalk, stopping by our vigils saying, I had an abortion appointment scheduled several years ago, and you guys were here. Maybe they talked to somebody, maybe they didn't. Sometimes they tell us that. Sometimes we don't know. But they'll say, thank you for being here. And I think that takes so much courage and so much love to do that. I really do. I think that mom or dad loved us enough back to stop and tell us that, because they don't have to. And I have loved the few times that I've witnessed that. And we actually just had that happen recently, right before the vigil started. At one of our 365 locations, we had a mom stop and tell a group in the South that 11 years ago, she almost aborted her baby, and she had her child with her, her almost 11-year-old or her 10-year-old. And those are those types of things where it's like, okay, thank you. I don't deserve that. I don't have to have that confirmation, Lord, but thank you when that happens. And it's so powerful.
One sows and another reaps, right? We had it in Orange, California, right before the vigil started. And every campaign, it happens at least 2 or 3 times, sometimes 6 or 8 or even more once in a while times where someone comes back months or years later and says, thank you for being here. I never said anything at the time. I remember back 8 or 9 years ago, we did the bus tour to the 50 states.
Y'all's favorite.
Steve still has PTSD.
There's a lot we could say, but we'll stick to the point.
Maybe.
We got to Indianapolis. I remember getting off the bus, and a couple of ladies rushed up, and they said, look, I know how you're going to answer this question, but I have to ask it. We've been out for years. Never seen any babies saved. I know we get your emails, we hear your podcast, we know all the stuff that you say, so I know what you're going to say, but just we've never seen it. No workers have left. They're just flipping us off. We see the parking lot full of women getting abortions. There's no sign that this place is going to close anytime. Just, does it really make a difference when we're out here? And they didn't know it, and neither did I, but maybe a little bit further than the distance from me and Sean was a little 2-year-old girl playing in the grass right next to the sidewalk. Her name was Laurel, and she'd been brought back to that 40 Days for Life vigil to celebrate the fact that because somebody was there praying with 40 Days for Life, her life was spared, and they came back to say thank you. And gosh, how oftentimes could we be,
Proven.
Right next to someone who was chosen life? The car that we're focused on the guy that drove by and flipped us off, but right behind that guy was the mom who was coming for an abortion until she saw you, and she stayed right in that car and kept on driving. And her baby is not one of those 25,000 plus that we can count, but just as valuable as the ones that we can add a little tally to.
So that's such a beautiful story. And I know this is a negative podcast, so I'll get back to that. I've had people say that, and they want me, in that case you, someone, to kind of pump them up. Like, we've never seen a baby saved. And I always say the same thing, which is, you probably never will. Like, that's a possibility.
Not with that attitude, mister.
Who's up for lunch? But that's possible. You just may never see it. And that's sort of like eyes of eternity. I'm not saying, I laugh and they're like, you really know how to cheer somebody up. But it's actually relaxing. And we know, or I believe, they will. If they keep going out there, they're going to see a baby saved. But accepting the fact that you may never see a baby saved, and that's not what this is about, is actually holding the baby and having that moment or getting confirmation that your work produced fruit, it makes it even better if and when it does happen. So I don't think there's anything wrong with going, if somebody signs up right now and they're like, I want to be a fall leader. It's spring, it's Lent, I'm inspired by this podcast somehow, and I want to lead in the fall. What's the worst scenario for a new leader running a 40 Days for Life? And I'm not talking about like some lunatic drives up and shoots them or whatever, because that's never happened. But like, the worst case scenario is you see no fruit, and it's really hard getting any volunteers, and all the pastors slam the door in your face, and it's hot or it's super cold. Whatever bad weather you have, it's way worse. And your family says, don't come home at Thanksgiving because we hate the pro-life movement and you're one of the enemies. And like that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Your family gets mad at you. The churches are lame. No babies are saved. All of that.
Yeah.
So if all of that's true, the one thing that can still happen in the midst of your worst case scenario of leading a 40 Days for Life campaign is that you are present with babies in solidarity with them as they die.
Yeah.
And no one would say hospice is a waste of time.
Right.
No, I know hospice is controversial, but you know what I mean? Like, no one would say bedside manner is useless. Why is the
Palliative
doctor
care.
holding your hand?
Canadians would.
He just told you you're going to die. The doctor just told you that you're going to die, and now he's holding your hand. Why doesn't he go to save somebody down the hall while there's still time?
Yeah.
Because that's not the way we work. And so that's, to me, what's one of the beautiful things about 40 Days for Life is your worst case scenario is still beautiful and good and pure.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, and it's whether we meet these babies on this side of heaven or not, I'm very confident we will on the other side. I think we've all been to like the local pro-life event.
But what if we don't? I'll pick up on my thing. I'm teasing.
Tell that to St. Paul.
Tell that to St. Paul. Yeah, now you will see all the babies that were saved. Well, that may be the humiliating thing. Flip this upside down and potentially see, for those who, I've had a lot of people stop me and say, I really regret not getting involved in the pro-life movement. And then they still don't get involved. Like, I've just been lazy and they move on. Will we get a glimpse of all the children we would have saved, but didn't?
Interesting.
Probably.
The sin of omission. And that goes with every aspect of our life. The people we could have helped, the people we set a bad example for this person, and then they went on this trail, and it was because of one stupid comment that we made.
Wow.
You know, so when you really reflect in the theme of eternity, that's why I wanted to mock your Meet the Saved Babies, because that's all great. But what about, this is the dark Irish Catholic of like, what about the babies we didn't save?
Sure.
Due to A, B, and C. And A, B, and C are always bad for us. It's never like, you know.
You're in full swing with Lent, Sean. Full swing.
I'm loving it. Let's hold off Easter just a couple of more weeks. Dig down deep. But I do think that, honestly, the wonderful participants in 40 Days for Life have gotten to a point where they can no longer do nothing. Like, I mean, they're going out on the street, and that's why we get, why don't you pray in your house? Why don't you pray in your church? Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, we're just so beyond all that. Like, I've got to go out there knowing, because abortion has an urgency that other issues don't.
And this is mission work in our own backyard. We can't pray away the poverty in other places, in our communities, in other countries. That's not how that works. Like, from our homes. Like, prayer is supposed to call us to action.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it is a little of the rich man and Lazarus, you know, and just go and tell my brothers, no, they didn't listen to the prophets. They're not going to listen to anybody, you know, and it's just kind of like you had your shot, directly from our Lord. So anyways, I think that there's merit to embracing the worst case scenario and knowing that, even God can use that scenario.
Well, Sean, you put this story in one of your books, which is we did one of our leader workshops 10 years ago back in Indianapolis, actually. And I made an agreement with the local leader. Her name was Linda at the time. I was like, hey, Linda, we're coming to do the workshop. Looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. If you'd be interested, maybe we could do a vigil Friday night out in front of Planned Parenthood before we do the workshop to train all the leaders in Indiana and Illinois and Ohio and Kentucky. She said, that's great, Steve, but maybe you could do noon instead of the evening. They'll be doing abortions that day, and it'll be easier to get people out on their lunch break and all of that sort of thing. Sure, I'll go. But it wasn't long before I was having some regrets about that, because it was like, this is back in the day where you could be sick and go to work and not get judged. But I was not feeling well, and then I realized, man, I'm gonna have to get up super early, and then I'm gonna hit Chicago traffic. So
wasn't there a baseball situation? There was some kind of sporting event.
Not in this one. No,
okay,
this one,
dang it.
I'm only like 3/4 lame and not 100%.
Okay.
There is a story. I'm not gonna remind you of it.
Okay, I'm confusing Steve's pathetic stories. Okay, this is my favorite one though.
There's just like 100 reasons why I didn't want to go out, and I'm kind of scheming my way. Like, maybe there's a way I can get out of this vigil and save face. I feel like a dirtbag 10 years later admitting this. And I'm kind of like laying out like, hey, Laura, what if I explain I'm not feeling that well? I got to be fresh for the workshop tomorrow, all of that. I'm like, what do you think? She just looks at me. What do you think? She looks at me. No, don't just look at me. Say something. What do you think? Do you think this is acceptable? And she goes, oh, you're serious about all that? I thought you were just whining. No, suck it up. Go to your job. Save some babies. And so I made it there by noon. The traffic wasn't that bad, so I did have to get up super early, and I did end up getting actually pretty sick afterward. But bottom line is...
And Laura still said...
In defense of myself, although I ended up at ICU.
I died 3 times afterwards.
I died 3 times.
But all that joking aside...
That's great.
About halfway through, somebody came up and said, hey, our sidewalk counselors just saved a baby. Like, praise God. And what I didn't realize until later is there was nobody scheduled to be out there sidewalk counseling that day. Only because we did this rally did some people say, okay, well, you guys do the rally. We're here. We'll kind of listen, but we'll reach out to the women who are coming in. So rally finishes 40 minutes later, and somebody says, hey, great news. We saved a baby. I said, I know, I heard like 40 minutes ago. Congratulations. Praise God. Oh, no, not that one. Another one. And so flash forward again, a few months later, the fall 40 Days for Life campaign is about to kick off. And so I'm talking with Linda, and I just mentioned how grateful I was that not 1 but 2 babies were saved that day. Linda still, to my knowledge, does not know that I try to weasel out of her vigil. So if you know Linda in Indianapolis, don't tell her. Don't tell Eileen in Indianapolis. Don't tell anybody in Indianapolis. This is our little secret. She gets kind of sheepish though when I talk about the 2 saved babies. Like, oh, Steve, gosh, I'm sorry. I just and I thought, oh, great, she's gonna tell me they both had abortions and it'll be tragic. She said, I thought we let you know, but we actually found out that there was a 3rd baby saved that hour. So
Wow.
This
awesome.
is where like God in His mercy spared me from being the dirtbag who could have saved babies but didn't because I didn't want to show up to work when I wasn't feeling 100%.
Yeah, but God in His mercy also makes you the, what did you say, dirtbag?
You can add your own adjectives if you want.
No. But the only person anybody can relate to in that story is you.
Sure.
So that's the good thing about it, right? I mean, because we've all been there. We've all thought that. We've all done it or almost done it. And, you know, it's just one of those things. It shows a great wife, too, of like, hey, I think you're just whining. Like, just get over it and go do it.
I
And all
was
of
a big crybaby.
You and your man cold.
Although he got the flu
That
and
you
almost
really wanna
died.
say, yeah.
Nobody wants that part of the story.
No.
Yeah.
I was the real hero, Sean.
I was the real hero.
Gosh.
Yeah, so no prayer goes unanswered.
But that goes right into, that doesn't mean we won't see lives saved
Correct.
if we haven't yet. Even being out there 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I have heard from many leaders and volunteers, even in Austin, who we had several saves, over the years, but individual volunteers had been volunteering for so long and had never personally witnessed that. So even that was discouraging to them and made them think, I've read your emails. Yeah, I know we've had them here, but I haven't seen it. And again, what am I doing wrong? But I love Tina from Flint, Michigan. She said, we felt very discouraged this campaign. And all the campaigns we have had in Flint, we never had an official quote unquote save. During the campaign, we gathered for the midpoint rally. One mom who already had her deposit down was scheduled for an abortion. That day, she had a dream the night before and saw people in her dream praying for her. Then she showed up the next day. The dream was reality when she saw all of us out there. She saw us praying, and she chose life for her baby instead of abortion. And again, how many times have we been that person where we don't feel like getting up early? We can make easily any excuse in the world not to go. Why can't somebody else do it? All those things. But you just never know how God is going to use that hour. And so we commit to this in hope.
We've got a vigil in Plainfield, New Jersey, that they went a decade before they saw their first baby, and then they did. So again, just because you haven't doesn't mean you won't. And I love this story from Leonore in Thousand Oaks, California, one of our great leaders, iconic leaders, a 365 leader. And back a few years ago, they had not known of a saved baby for a decade or more at their vigil. And, well, we'll just keep doing it. It's the right thing to do. And they learned of a saved baby. But since then, one of the local pregnancy help centers started sharing with not anything inappropriate, no identifying information, but just each month gives a report of like, hey, we had 3 women that chose life because they saw you. Every month there are saved babies. They hadn't heard about any for,
Right.
10 years is 120 months, but now every single month, and usually not just one, usually it's 2 or 3. And so I think it just goes to show this is where the guy who said, we've never seen 75%, well, somebody is. It's the abortion workers, and to perhaps a lesser but still very real extent, it's the pregnancy help centers who I've never been to a 40 Days for Life vigil and talked to a pregnancy help center director who has said anything other than when you guys are out there, our numbers go up.
Yeah, it's a match made in heaven. It's why we work the closest with them, and we're local. We're in every community, and so it makes sense that we work closely with them.
We heard of a local pregnancy center in Austin 1 year, and a few times since then. They reported that their rate of moms choosing life that had gone into their facility had increased by 18% at their pregnancy center after 40 Days for Life started. This was before we were year round as much or as often, but it was a beautiful thing. It was like, okay, once again, we don't have those numbers, from people telling us. We don't know what happens necessarily, even if they talk to us and they take information. We don't necessarily know how that ends. So
I want to kind of recap too, because this is the 5 things to remember when we don't save babies. So the first one is you probably are saving babies, you just don't know it. Number 2 is no prayer ever goes unanswered. Number 3 is just because you haven't yet doesn't mean you won't. Mm-hmm. Number 4 is saved babies aren't the only way God answers your prayers. And this is a great little litany of just fun.
Gosh.
It's like the side effects of,
yes.
Do you eat blueberries? Okay, you'll never get cancer, heart disease. They list all this stuff so that everybody has to eat blueberries. This is the same way. Okay, the abortion rate will decrease. We saw 28%. In this building, back when it was a Planned Parenthood abortion facility.
And that's what turned it into the now international campaign.
It wasn't like 92% of women chose life. It was like, no, it was like 28%. The abortions went down, 28%. Chick-fil-A sells 28% fewer chicken sandwiches. That's, major issues, if not bankruptcy. Workers leave. Mm-hmm. Some from conversion, others because you're just a pain in the rear and they don't want to deal with you. But
we started tracking just the last few years. In addition, we share the number of we share the number of workers who leave through conversion, but we also survey the leaders. How many workers left, and you don't know why they just left, and it's about the same number.
And the reason we monitor that is not because we're like, yeah, we pissed them off enough, they quit. It's that turnover hurts any business, and it especially hurts one with as much tension as an abortion facility. So keeping loyal people is very important to Planned Parenthood, and it should be. But when you start having turnover in a place like that, it's just chaotic, as it is in any business or company.
Well, we saw sort of a phenomenon this year where the last few years where Planned Parenthoods, they're not closed out of business, but they're closing for weeks or months at a time. We've had this year in Aurora, Colorado. We've had it in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where the University of Michigan is. Like, of all the places, if there's one Planned Parenthood in America that is safe from being closed by pro-life efforts, it should probably be in a place like Ann Arbor, right? But yet they're shuttered for a long period of time. And I think one of the reasons that is very often the case is they can't staff the place. They don't have anybody to work there. And so sometimes the local pro-lifers are asking, well, should we keep doing this? It's going to be harder to recruit volunteers. I say, yes, absolutely, because you want to be there praying the day that they come in for the job interview.
Yes.
And, I don't think I want to pray, or I don't think I want to work at a place where people are showing up to pray every day, even if it's raining or hot or snowy.
You also keep abortion in contempt publicly when you're out in front of even a closed, like a Planned Parenthood that's not open. They close at 5:00 and you're out there at 7. You're reminding the community of what goes on. It's what Martin Luther King called constructive tension. Our version of peaceful and prayerful. But there is controversy around the location, and your presence causes that. No, there's no doubt. There's just so many different ways that there also becomes, I've seen, businesses just don't want to do business with the business that always has people in front of it. It's just kind of the stigma of like,
Yeah.
I support women's health, but I don't know about you guys. It's your drama. Your drama in our area. And I don't want drama in my business.
Makes the Chamber of Commerce membership a little more of an open-ended question, right?
We got them thrown out of that.
Is that right?
Yeah, we got them thrown out of that. We got them thrown out of the public schools. And we got them thrown out of something else that was really fun. But yeah, all that kind of stuff. Got them thrown out of the A&M Medical School. Just when you sort of expose, like, this is what they are, and the tension, it's great. We got certain donors to ask for their donation back.
Oh, wow.
Did they get it?
Yeah, and then some businesses, like there were restaurants. I'm really glad because this was like I really like this restaurant that will go unnamed. But they, somebody calls and is like, we're doing our little fundraiser. And whoever's on the phone's like, okay, this is our standard thing. Here's $100. It wasn't a lot of money, like a gift card to this restaurant. So we outed them and they asked for the gift card back from Planned Parenthood and apologized.
That's awesome.
Demoralizing that is if you're working at Planned Parenthood. Like you're like, it was $100 gift card. They asked for it back.
Yeah.
Like they didn't want to be associated with us.
And it better have all $25 on it, too.
That's right.
There was, as of the recording of this podcast, actually this morning, I heard from one of our 365 leaders that for multiple weeks straight now in all places, New York, there has been a facility that has not been doing abortions for multiple weeks in a row now. So you never know. And that's also something that people there could ask. Should we still keep going out here? And the answer is yes, keep going out there.
Now more than ever.
Yes.
Yeah, close them. Okay, the last item, number 5, there is no such thing as a failure on the sidewalk.
Little George Bailey action there. It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
No,
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what are you talking about? There's a lot of ways to fail. I see failure all the time.
Clarence the Angel says, no man is a failure who has friends.
Oof.
It's George Bailey.
You forget. So Steve has seen like Bill and Ted's and then all the Adam Sandler movies, and then he's seen It's a Wonderful Life. So, of course, It's a Wonderful Life is his favorite movie because it's the only one like halfway serious that he's ever seen. But it is a good movie.
It is a great movie.
Very good movie. Another one they should remake. I don't want to go on that tangent.
Ooh,
but
no.
Give us some George Bailey here to close us out because he's positive figure.
Well, let's say everything goes wrong and you never see a baby saved. I think this gets back to the point of that you made earlier where even if you're out there and that little girl or little boy is lost on your watch, we're tempted to feel sometimes like, oh man, I failed to say the right thing. What if I had the right words? What if I was standing here? What if like I had a different shirt on? Like there can be a whole lot of like, what if I did this wrong? We can blame ourselves. It's a frustrating thing. But I always think the bottom line, when you're there, that simple act of presence and prayer might be the only act of love that child ever receives in his or her short life on this earth. Doesn't get love from the mother, maybe not from the father, certainly not from the doctors. Maybe nobody else even knows about that little boy or girl, but you were there and that child was loved. And I think that is a gift in and of itself. And I think that is, as you said, worth it. Solidarity.
There's a reversal of, it's a beautiful point, and there's a reversal of the mom who later comes out with her 3-year-old and says, you saved my child. I want you to meet my little girl. It's a beautiful moment. I do think in my hopes for humanity and the natural love that every woman has is that we know women don't forget the day of their abortion. But if the woman doesn't choose life, she doesn't drive by, so she can't come by and bring her 3-year-old, she has the abortion, I think she thinks about those people outside later on if she regrets it.
Yeah.
And most of them regret it. But I do think most women aren't clear of mind. They're 20 years old. They're 25 years old. But when they're 70 and they drive by a 40 Days for Life and they see people standing out there, I just think they think about that like that. There was somebody there for me. And we've heard it on the opposite. Catherine Walker's talked about this. So many post-abortive women have said, I wish somebody would have been out there.
Yes.
And they're really honest about it. They're like, I'm not saying I would have turned around.
Right.
I'm not trying to be like, well, you weren't there, so I had an abortion. They're not blaming anybody. They're saying, I would have at least had the chance.
Yes.
And I would have thought about it later on. Like I was given a last minute opportunity. And I think for those women that just see us and go in and have the abortion, they think about that. I think it's natural, that there was somebody out there at least, and I didn't know them. They really weren't yelling. They really weren't. I didn't feel like they were judging me. Maybe I felt that way at the time. Yeah.
They were trying to talk gently to me.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the fruits is how we treat the women that go through with it.
Yes.
Our society is very focused on results, and in some ways you have to be. If you're running a company, you can't get by on good vibes or good intentions, right? You've got to get results. But we can take that too far, and it breaks down on the human level. And something that was very formative to me is, I remember back 20 years ago, my grandfather died, and my mom was devastated. He was only in his 60s and whatnot. My mom was very close with him, and she had a friend who came and just the whole day at the reception, funeral, whole 9 yards, she just sat there. Didn't give a speech, just sat there and was present. And my mom was like, that's a great, it was a great gift to me. She didn't do anything, it didn't accomplish anything, but it was a great gift. And I think sometimes that's something important for us to remember, that just simply being there, present, in humility, recognizing our inability to make a difference can
on our
mean
own
as much as anything else we do.
Yeah.
That happened to me when my grandpa died because I was very close to him and I was 14. And that was my first encounter with somebody that I knew died. And we were in the hospital room with him. And I remember that first time I saw a corpse, and I just remember going up, kissing him, all my aunts, uncles, everybody's bawling. My granny, they were married 56 years. She's crying. And I didn't know what to do. I was crying. But you know how you feel, you're young, you're like, is somebody supposed to say something? Like, what are we supposed to do? And these old Polish nuns who worked in the hospital came in and they had, their habits on and everything. And they immediately went up to me and my brother and my sister, because we were the children in the room, and just hugged us. And I remember starting to talk to the sister and she says, we don't talk, we just cry. It was so good. It was so beautiful. And I thought, we've lost this sense of mourning, obviously, in that case, but just this sense of presence. And, pray in your home, pray in your house, and all that. And it's aren't these women and the unborn and even the workers worthy of our presence?
Yes.
We're going to write them off and hope for the best?
There's a group, they're called No One Dies Alone. And I don't know if this is Christian, secular, maybe somebody will write in and say they give money to Planned Parenthood. I have no idea, but I like the premise of it. And it's just people who are dying in the hospital and they don't have families.
Yeah.
They want to make sure nobody dies by themselves. And so you get in this list and you're on call. Hey, it's 3:00. This guy, he's got 3 hours. Can you get here? And you just sit with them while they pass. That looks objectively, that looks dumb, right? What's the point? You could get some sleep. Maybe you'd be better at your job and you'd create some invention that would save lives, blah, blah, we get way too practical, but just being there is such a beautiful thing.
Giving alms and...
Boy, you set up a COVID rant with that. We got to close the podcast.
No.
Dying alone.
No, yes. Well, wait.
This is what radicalized me, Sean, when it came to COVID.
No.
Disgrace.
No, but okay,
I was trying to calm the mood.
No
Everybody
negative
get along
COVID.
at Thanksgiving, no negative COVID.
No.
You want positive COVID? It doesn't exist.
Okay, I would argue that almost all of us, maybe all of us, desire to have a better prayer life. You can have a better prayer life when you're participating in 40 Days for Life. You can have a better interior life. Most of the time you're standing there alone. It's quiet. Maybe you're standing with a group praying, but that's your opportunity. Also, you as I like to say, you've made an appointment with God and you've kept it. And you might not otherwise be praying that hour every single week for 40 days or for maybe all year long, every week all year long. And I have heard so many volunteers say that they grew in their faith just by participating. They didn't witness any saves.
Yep.
They didn't talk to any moms. They didn't see any abortion workers quit. They didn't see a facility close. But their prayer life got better and they got closer to Christ. And that's also something that we don't think about, as a result that could happen from this. So.
And as we close out the Lent campaign, these were the 5 things that you need to remember. Is that number 1, you probably are saving babies, you just don't know it. Number 2, no prayer ever goes unanswered. Number 3, just because you haven't saved a baby yet doesn't mean you won't. Number 4, saved babies aren't the only way God answers your prayers. And number 5, there's no such thing as a failure on the sidewalk, i.e. George Bailey. So thank you for listening. Please give us any of your tips where you have felt encouraged in your discouragement and realize that hope is right around the corner. And we will put that, or go ahead and post it on YouTube, and so everybody can see it and be encouraged. So if you haven't done it already, go to 40daysforlife.com, find your location, and help us close out the largest Lent campaign ever very strong. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Heather. Rate, review, and share this podcast, and we will see you next time. God bless you.